Welcome back to Psalm 23. This is Monday, March the 15th, 2021. We want to take a look at the first phrase of Psalm 23, verse 4. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Let's examine this word by word, sometimes phrase by phrase, to get a Hebrew perspective on it. Oftentimes, when you hear this verse referred to or preached, it's going to be at a funeral service or it's going to be at a memorial service. And that is part and parcel, perhaps, but in the culture and the time where David wrote this psalm, it was not referring to physical death. So let's pull this apart together. Notice the word even. It does not say when or if. Even carries the idea of a genuine possible reality. It's an understood possibility, which means that the shepherd was not caught off guard or something suddenly came upon him that would endanger the sheep. He would be aware of the possibility of any dangers as he leads his sheep through this valley. Though I walk, the sheep will follow the pace of the shepherd. The shepherd is walking ahead of the sheep. Now, don't lose sight of that. The sheep are not wandering aimlessly ahead of the shepherd. You don't drive sheep, you lead sheep. So the shepherd is out front of the sheep. And if there is any danger or harm going through the valley, the shepherd will probably be the first one that will notice it and protect the sheep. The sheep will be walking behind the shepherd. Therefore, there is the absence of panic or fear. Walk through. This means that from the point the sheep enter into this valley until the shepherd guides them out the other side, the sheep will walk through. They will make it to the other end. They will reach the destination. This is the pathway to reach the destination of additional green pastures and sweet flowing cool water. Valley. The Hebrew word means a low-lying area, a ravine between two higher elevations or hills or a mountain. Here's a picture of a valley that the shepherd might lead the sheep through, and you notice the mountains on either side. A better accurate picture would be mountains in the front and mountains in the back, the shepherd coming down out of the mountains into the valley, proceeding towards the next rise to go up. It's a low-lying area. They've come off of some sweet grass and some just delightful time up there on the mountain. Now they come down into the valley and they're proceeding towards another elevated hill or mountain top. It's a journey for them. The idea of the valley of the shadow of death, the Hebrew word means death-like shadow, a deep shadow, not necessarily physical death, something that could pose like death, a death shadow, something very dark and ominous. Anything that blocks out the sun, anything that hinders the daylight from shining down, giving a foreboding environment. This is the idea behind the shadow of death. Shadows can be intimidating, can't they? Shadows can magnify a small object. For example, a squirrel is probably maybe 6-8 inches long in length, but placed in the right position to the sun can cast a very long shadow across a sidewalk, and they are on the side of a house. This is the idea behind shadow. You don't know what's in the shadow. You see the shadow. It looks ominous. It looks like it might be hiding some danger. But if you trace the shadow back, you will find out perhaps that there is just a little squirrel hiding in the corner because he heard you coming down the sidewalk. This literally happened to me as I was walking in our neighborhood back in Illinois. In the middle of our valley, we strain to see clearly. We can become overwhelmed by the shadows of the unknown or uncontrollable. It is only a shadow enlarging the situation to seemingly insurmountable resolution. The valley at the end of a new horizon, blessing and adventure to climb. A valley leads back into another challenge, another exciting time of experiencing and witnessing the tremendous provision of the Lord. What are some takeaways? Well, if you read Romans chapter 5, verses 3 through 5, James chapter 1, the first 8 verses or so, 1 Peter chapter 1, these passages remind us that we will experience trials and tribulations. Even when they come, we are not to be surprised. In fact, these passages of scriptures tell us don't be surprised when the fiery trials come your way. The thing that we need to remember are a few thoughts here. One, they are going to come. The idea of Christianity removing all trouble and tribulation is a fallacy. That is not a biblical presentation of the Christian life. We will have trials. We will have tribulations. There will be troubling times. They will come. But the Christian will not be surprised by that. One reason that the Christian should not be surprised by that is that if they are walking in the Spirit and by the Spirit, they will understand the shepherd is ahead of them in the trial, in the tribulation, in the troubling times. He's leading me through that valley. I think of the disciples who went out fishing, and Jesus was alone in the mountain praying, and he looked out onto the Sea of Galilee, and it was in a valley surrounded by two hills, mountains, and the wind would come rushing in and stirring up the waters to such a storm. These were seasoned fishermen. They knew what waters and storms were all about. And he sees them struggling on the oars to try to get back to shore. But guess what? If you read the text very carefully, he told them to go to the other side. He sent them smack dab into the middle of a storm. Why? How cruel. It was for their benefit to learn a very valuable lesson about obedience to the master rabbi and his character, his provision, his safety. Even though he wasn't before them, he knew where they were and what they were about to encounter, and he came to them. Final thought here is that this verse provides a completion, walking through. The trials will have an end. And as we follow the chief shepherd going before us, it will end in a way that brings glory to God and blessing to me. I'm sure Job thought his trial would never end, but there were perimeters that God put on Satan in his attack on Job, and Job entered into this valley where it was so cloudy and distorted, he felt completely alone. But he came out on the other side, and you know what he said? He said, "Now I've heard of you with the hearing of the ear, but now I see you with my eye." He moved from a mental comprehension and assent about Jehovah to a personal walking experience with him. That's one of the benefits of the valley. But the greater benefit, besides the valley, beloved, is who is in front of you as you walk through the valley. Fixing your eyes on Jesus, the author and finisher of your faith. That's what we should be looking toward. Next time, tomorrow, when we get together, Lord willing, we'll take a look at Psalm 23, 4b. It says, "I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." That's how I make it through the valley. And we'll take a look at those words tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in.